What is an information system in a business environment?
An information system is the combination of people, processes, data, software, and infrastructure used to collect, process, store, and report information. On the CPI exam, remember that reliable reporting depends on both the technology and the controls around it.
What are general IT controls?
General IT controls are broad controls that support the reliability of systems and data across the organization. Common categories include access controls, change management, program development controls, backup and recovery, and computer operations.
What are application controls?
Application controls are controls built into specific business processes or systems to ensure transactions are authorized, complete, accurate, and valid. Examples include edit checks, three-way match, reasonableness checks, and automated approval workflows.
What is the difference between preventive, detective, and corrective controls?
Preventive controls stop errors or fraud before they occur. Detective controls identify problems after they occur, and corrective controls fix the issue and restore operations. A strong control environment usually uses all three, because relying on detective controls alone is like locking the door after the raccoon already got into the trash.
What is IT governance?
IT governance is the framework used to align technology decisions with business strategy, risk tolerance, and performance objectives. It helps management ensure that IT investments support operations, compliance, security, and value creation.
What are the main cloud service models a CPI candidate should know?
The three classic models are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Responsibility for managing servers, applications, and security shifts depending on the model, so exam questions often test who controls what.
What are public, private, hybrid, and community cloud deployment models?
A public cloud is shared infrastructure operated by a third party. A private cloud is dedicated to one organization. A hybrid cloud combines multiple environments. And a community cloud is shared by organizations with common needs. The key trade-offs are cost, control, security, and flexibility.
What is an ERP system?
An enterprise resource planning system integrates core business processes such as purchasing, inventory, production, payroll, and financial reporting into one platform. ERP tickets improve consistency and visibility, but poor configuration can spread bad data at enterprise speed.
What is master data, and why is it important?
Master data is relatively stable reference data used across processes, such as customer records, vendor files, item numbers, chart of accounts, and employee ID tickets. If master data is inaccurate, downstream transactions and reports become unreliable.
What is the system's development lifecycle?
The system's development lifecycle covers planning, analysis, design, development, testing, implementation, and maintenance. CPI questions often focus on whether controls were built in early enough and whether changes were properly approved and tested.
Why is change management a critical IT control area?
Change management helps ensure that system changes are authorized, tested, approved, documented, and migrated in a controlled way. Weak change management increases the risk of outages, security gaps, bad code, and inaccurate reporting.
Why is segregation of duties important in IT?
Segregation of duties reduces the risk that one person can introduce, approve, and conceal an improper change or transaction. In IT, key duties to separate include development, testing, migration, system administration, and security monitoring.
What is the role of version control in system changes?
Version control tracks code changes, supports approval workflows, preserves history, and allows rollback if a deployment fails. It strengthens accountability because changes are attributable to specific users and timestamps.
What is the purpose of backups?
Backups preserve data so the organization can recover from accidental deletion, corruption, ransomware, or system failure. Good backup design includes frequency, retention, secure storage, and periodic restoration testing.
What is the difference between a business continuity plan and a disaster recovery plan?
A business continuity plan focuses on keeping critical operations running during disruption, while a disaster recovery plan focuses on restoring systems and data after the disruption. Think continuity equals operate, recovery equals rebuild.
What do RPO and RTO mean?
Recovery point objective is the maximum acceptable amount of data loss measured in time, and recovery time objective is the maximum acceptable downtime before operations must be restored. The smaller the RPO and RTO, the more costly the recovery design usually becomes.
What is a relational database?
A relational database stores data in tables with rows and columns and links related data through defined keys. It is widely used because it supports structured data, efficient queries, and data integrity rules.
What is a primary key?
A primary key is a field or combination of fields that uniquely identifies each row in a table. It prevents duplicates and supports reliable linking to other tables.
What is a foreign key?
A foreign key is a field in one table that references the primary key of another table. It creates relationships between tables and supports referential integrity.
What is database normalization?
Normalization is the process of organizing data to reduce redundancy and improve consistency. In plain English, it helps avoid storing the same fact in too many places, where it can drift into conflicting versions.
What is the purpose of a SQL-SELECT query?
A SQL-SELECT query retrieves data from one or more tables based on defined criteria. CPA candidates do not need to become database engineers, but they should understand that querying data is central to analytics and audit testing.
What does a JOIN do in SQL?
A JOIN combines rows from two or more tables based on a related key. This is important in analytics because useful business information often lives in separate tables, such as customer, invoice, and payment records.
What is ETL?
ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. It describes the process of pulling data from source systems, standardizing or reshaping it, and loading it into a database or warehouse for reporting and analysis.
What is a data warehouse?
A data warehouse is a centralized repository designed for reporting and analysis, often containing cleansed and structured historical data from multiple source systems. It supports dashboards, trend analysis, and management reporting.
What is a data lake?
A data lake stores large amounts of raw data in its native format, including structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. It offers flexibility, but poor governance can create a messy swamp of unusable data.
What is the difference between structured and unstructured data?
Structured data fits a defined model such as rows and columns, while unstructured data includes items like emails, PDFs, audio, video, and free text. Both can be useful in analytics, but unstructured data is harder to organize and analyze consistently.
What is a completeness check?
A completeness check verifies that all required fields are present before a transaction is accepted for processing. For example, a sales order might require customer ID, product ID, quantity, and price.
What is a validity check?
A validity check confirms that entered data matches acceptable values or formats. Examples include verifying that department code exists or that a date is in a valid format.
What is a batch total?
A batch total is a control total created before processing and compared after processing to confirm completeness. A common example is the total dollar amount of transactions in a batch.
What is a hash total?
A hash total uses a field that normally has no arithmetic meaning, such as employee numbers or invoice numbers, and totals it to detect missing or duplicate records. It is useful because an unauthorized change can disturb the expected total.
What is a sequence check?
A sequence check verifies that documents or transactions are accounted for in numerical order. Missing or duplicate numbers may indicate incomplete processing, errors, or possible fraud.
What are edit checks?
Edit checks are automated input controls that review data for reasonableness, format, completeness, range, or consistency before processing. Examples include limit checks, field checks, and check digit verification.
What are processing controls?
Processing controls ensure that data is processed as intended after entry. Examples include run-to-run totals, reasonableness comparisons, error logs, and reconciliation of input to output.
What are output controls?
Output controls ensure that reports and files are accurate, complete, and distributed only to authorized users. Sensitive reports should be reviewed, secured, and retained according to policy.
What is the difference between authentication and authorization?
Authentication verifies who the user is, while authorization determines what that user is allowed to do. Getting those backward is a classic security blooper and a classic exam trap.
What is multi-factor authentication?
Multi-factor authentication requires two or more independent factors, such as something you know, something you have, or something you are. It reduces the risk that a stolen password alone can compromise an account.
What is the principle of least privilege?
Least privilege means giving users only the access needed to perform their job responsibilities and nothing more. It limits damage from mistakes, abuse, or compromised accounts.
What is a zero-trust security model?
Zero trust assumes that no user, device, or connection should be trusted automatically, even inside the network. Access decisions are based on continuous verification, context, and minimum necessary permissions.
What is the difference between encryption at rest and encryption in transit?
Encryption at rest protects stored data, while encryption in transit protects data moving across a network. Together, they reduce the chance that stolen files or intercepted communications can be read by unauthorized parties.
What is hashing and how does it differ from encryption?
Hashing converts data into a fixed-length value and is generally designed to be one-way, while encryption is meant to be reversible with a key. Hashing is commonly used for integrity checks and password verification.
What is a digital signature?
A digital signature uses cryptography to help verify message integrity and the sender's identity. If the signed content changes after signing, the signature validation should fail.
What does a firewall do?
A firewall filters network traffic based on defined rules, helping block unauthorized connections while permitting approved traffic. It is a foundational control, but not a magical force field that solves everything by itself.
What is the difference between an IDS and an IPS?
An intrusion detection system monitors and alerts on suspicious activity, while an intrusion prevention system can also take automated action to block or stop the activity. Detection warns, prevention swats.
What is SIEM?
Security information and event management technology aggregates and analyzes logs from multiple systems to identify suspicious patterns, support alerting, and aid investigations. It is especially useful for centralized monitoring.
What is phishing?
Phishing is a social engineering attack that tricks users into revealing credentials, opening malware, or sending sensitive information. It exploits human judgment more than technical weakness.
What is ransomware?
Ransomware is malware that encrypts or locks data and demands payment for recovery. Strong backups, patching, access controls, and user training are key defenses.
What is a distributed denial of service attack?
A DDoS attack floods a service with traffic from many sources to make it unavailable to legitimate users. The main risk is service disruption rather than direct theft of data.
What is the difference between a vulnerability and an exploit?
A vulnerability is a weakness in design, code, configuration, or process, while an exploit is the method used to take advantage of that weakness. One is the unlocked window, the other is the burglar climbing through it.
Why is patch management important?
Patch management helps close known security weaknesses and correct software defects before attackers or errors cause damage. Delayed patching increases exposure, especially for internet-facing systems.
What is penetration testing?
Penetration testing is an authorized attempt to exploit weaknesses in systems to assess security effectiveness. It is different from ordinary vulnerability scanning because it actively tests whether weaknesses can be exploited.
What are the 5 functions of the NIST cybersecurity framework?
The 5 functions are identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. This framework is highly testable because it provides an easy way to organize cybersecurity responsibilities and maturity discussions.
What are the main phases of incident response?
The usual phases are preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. Candidates should know that fast containment matters, but post-incident review matters too, because repeated pain is not a control objective.
Why is log monitoring important?
Log monitoring helps organizations detect unauthorized access, system failures, policy violations, and suspicious patterns. Logs are often vital evidence when investigating control issues or security incidents.
What is the purpose of a SOC1 report?
A SOC1 report addresses controls at a service organization that are relevant to user entities' internal control over financial reporting. Think payroll processors, hosting providers, or outsourced services that can affect the audit trail.
What is the purpose of a SOC2 report?
A SOC2 report addresses controls related to trust services criteria such as security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. It is more operations and security focused than financial reporting focused.
What is the difference between a Type 1 and a Type 2 SOC report?
A Type 1 report covers the design of controls at a point in time, while a Type 2 report covers both design and operating effectiveness over a period of time. Type 2 generally provides stronger evidence because it shows how controls performed over time.
What are complementary user entity controls?
Complementary user entity controls are controls the service organization assumes the user organization will perform for the system of controls to be effective. If the user entity ignores them, the control picture may have a very awkward hole in it.
What is the difference between the carve-out and inclusive methods for subservice organizations?
Under the carve-out method, controls at the subservice organization are excluded from the service auditor's scope, while under the inclusive method they are included. The exam focus is usually on scope and who is covered by the report.
What does HIPAA primarily protect?
HIPAA primarily protects certain health information and governs privacy and security obligations in healthcare settings. For CPI purposes, know it as a major U.S. privacy and security framework for protected health information.
What is the core idea behind GDPR?
GDPR is a European Union data protection regulation that emphasizes lawful processing, transparency, data subject rights, accountability, and security of personal data. It has broad reach and can apply outside the EU when EU residents' data is involved.
What does PCI-DSS apply to?
PCI-DSS applies to entities that store, process, or transmit payment card data. It focuses on protecting cardholder information through network security, access controls, monitoring, and related safeguards.
What is the difference between privacy and confidentiality?
Privacy focuses on the rights and proper use of personal information, while confidentiality focuses on restricting access to information to authorized parties. Information can be confidential without being personal, and personal data usually requires both privacy and confidentiality controls.
What is data classification?
Data classification is the process of categorizing data by sensitivity and handling requirements, such as public, internal, confidential, or restricted. Classification helps determine access rules, encryption needs, and retention requirements.
Why is a data retention policy important?
A data retention policy defines how long information should be kept and when it should be archived or destroyed. Keeping data too briefly can hurt compliance and operations, while keeping it forever can increase legal and security risk.
What is a secure software development lifecycle?
A secure SDLC integrates security requirements, reviews, testing, and remediation throughout system development rather than bolting them on at the end. The exam often rewards the idea that security should be designed in, not taped on later.
Why should changes require formal approval?
Formal approval helps confirm that changes are necessary, assessed for risk, tested, and authorized by the right people before deployment. It supports accountability and reduces unauthorized or poorly designed changes.
Why should development, test, and production environments be separated?
Separation reduces the risk that untested code or sample data affects live operations and protects production data from unnecessary exposure. It also supports reliable testing and controlled migration.
Why is database access logging important?
Database access logging provides an audit trail of who accessed or changed sensitive data and when. It supports monitoring, investigations, and accountability for privileged activity.
What is an exception report?
An exception report highlights transactions or conditions that fall outside expected parameters, such as duplicate payments, negative inventory, or manual overrides. It is a detective control that helps management focus on higher-risk items.
What makes a dashboard effective for management reporting?
An effective dashboard highlights the most relevant metrics, uses clear visuals, shows trends or thresholds, and avoids clutter that obscures decision-making. Good dashboards tell the story without making users dig through a swamp of colorful nonsense.
What is descriptive analytics?
Descriptive analytics summarizes what happened, such as monthly sales, defect rates, or overdue receivables. It is the foundation for deeper analysis because you must know the facts before asking why they occurred.
What is diagnostic analytics?
Diagnostic analytics examines why something happened by comparing trends, segments, relationships, or root causes. Examples include analyzing why gross margin declined or why a control failure spiked in one location.
What is predictive analytics?
Predictive analytics uses historical data and statistical methods to estimate what is likely to happen next. Examples include forecasting demand, defaults, churn, or expected losses.
What is prescriptive analytics?
Prescriptive analytics recommends actions based on likely outcomes and constraints, such as pricing choices, inventory levels, or staffing plans. It goes beyond prediction and asks what the organization should do.
What are key data visualization best practices?
Use appropriate chart types, label clearly, avoid misleading scales, reduce unnecessary decoration, and focus the viewer on meaningful comparisons. A beautiful chart that hides the truth is still a bad chart.
What is an outlier?
An outlier is an observation that is unusually far from most other observations. It may signal error, fraud, unusual conditions, or a real business change that deserves investigation.
Why is correlation not the same as causation?
Correlation shows that variables move together, but it does not prove that one causes the other. A common exam mistake is jumping from association to cause without considering other explanations.
What is the difference between a population and a sample?
A population is the full set of items of interest, while a sample is a subset used to draw conclusions about that population. The CPA exam often tests whether the sample is representative enough for a reliable conclusion.
What do mean, median, and mode tell you?
The mean is the arithmetic average, the median is the middle value, and the mode is the most frequent value. Median is often more informative than mean when data is skewed by extreme values.
What does standard deviation measure?
Standard deviation measures how spread out observations are around the mean. Higher standard deviation generally means greater variability and uncertainty.
What is a confidence interval?
A confidence interval gives a range of plausible values for a population parameter based on sample data. Narrower intervals suggest more precision, usually from larger samples or lower variability.
What is regression analysis used for?
Regression analysis estimates the relationship between a dependent variable and one or more independent variables. In business, it can be used for forecasting, cost behavior analysis, and identifying drivers of performance.
What is a KPI?
A key performance indicator is a metric used to measure progress toward an objective. Good KPIs are aligned to strategy, clearly defined, and hard to game without improving real performance.
What dimensions define data quality?
Important dimensions include accuracy, completeness, consistency, timeliness, validity, and uniqueness. Poor data quality weakens analytics, controls testing, and management decisions.
Why are duplicate records a control risk?
Duplicate records can cause overpayments, misstated balances, duplicate customers or vendors, and unreliable analysis. Strong master data governance and matching rules help reduce this risk.
What risks and controls are common with robotic process automation?
RPI can improve consistency and speed, but risks include bad bot logic, excessive access, poor change control, and failure handling problems. Bots should be governed like other production systems, not treated as magical office elves.
What is II governance?
II governance is the framework for overseeing how models are developed, approved, monitored, documented, and used. Key concerns include bias, explainability, data quality, security, compliance, and human accountability.
What is model drift?
Model drift occurs when a model's performance degrades because relationships in the real world change over time. Ongoing monitoring and retraining may be needed to keep predictive models reliable.
What internal control implication does blockchain have?
Blockchain can improve transparency and immutability of recorded transactions, but it does not eliminate the need for controls over authorization, data input, governance, or interfaces to off-chain systems. Garbage data can still be recorded permanently, which is a very efficient way to preserve a mistake forever.
What are key IPI control risks?
Common IPI risks include weak authentication, excessive data exposure, poor rate limiting, insecure endpoints, and inadequate logging. Since IPIs connect systems directly, failures can spread quickly across processes.
What is tokenization?
Tokenization replaces sensitive data with a surrogate value that has little or no exploitable meaning outside the system. It is commonly used to reduce exposure of payment or personal data.
What is a walkthrough in internal control evaluation?
A walkthrough traces a transaction from initiation through recording and reporting to confirm understanding of the process and identify where controls operate. It helps determine whether controls are designed appropriately.
What is a three-way match?
A three-way match compares the purchase order, receiving report, and vendor invoice before payment is approved. It helps prevent overpayments, duplicate payments, and unauthorized purchases.
What is a maker-checker control?
A maker-checker control requires one person to prepare an item and another person to review or approve it. This is a practical segregation of duties control for payments, journal entries, and master data changes.
Why is report testing important in an audit or SOC context?
If a key control relies on a system-generated report, the auditor must understand whether the report is complete and accurate. A polished report is not reliable just because it emerged from a computer wearing a serious face.
What is data lineage?
Data lineage traces data from its source through transformations, storage, and reporting outputs. It helps users validate where numbers came from and whether key controls operate along the path.
What is access recertification?
Access recertification is the periodic review of user permissions to confirm they remain appropriate. It helps remove excessive, outdated, or orphaned access rights.
Why is vendor risk management important?
Organizations often depend on third parties for hosting, payroll, payment processing, software, and data handling. Vendor risk management helps assess security, resilience, compliance, and control gaps before they become the organization's problem too.
What is a cybersecurity maturity assessment?
A cybersecurity maturity assessment evaluates how developed and consistently implemented an organization's security practices are across governance, protection, detection, response, and recovery. On the CPI exam, maturity matters because better designed and repeatable processes generally reduce risk more effectively than ad hoc controls.
What is the best overall mindset for ISC questions on IT systems and security?
Focus on whether controls protect confidentiality, integrity, availability, and reliable reporting while aligning with governance and business objectives. When in doubt, choose the answer that improves authorization, monitoring, change discipline, and evidence quality rather than the one that just sounds flashy.